Turbo time.
What's going on, Turbo Nation? I am back. I told you I'd be back. Welcome to another episode of No Elite.
No problemo.
Now, before I get started with this episode, this whole series is about taking professional and enlisted variant weapons and modifying them to mimic elite weapons as close as we possibly can, or make them better than the elites in that weapon class. This is not a series that's intended for showing you the very best class setup. If you don't have a specific elite weapon that you want, then I show you which weapon variant that you will most likely have that is almost the same stats as that elite weapon. So I just wanted to make that clear. And if you're interested in my other episodes of this series, I'll leave the links in the description. Anyways, today we're going to be making the SN6 the third, and lucky for you guys, you have two SN6 variant weapon choices here in case you don't have one or the other, and it'll be up to you to pick which one you want to use. So let's go over what makes the SN6 the third a good elite weapon. Well, it's got a +1 increase in damage, which is really nice. However, it's important to note that the +1 damage has no effect on close to medium range, but it does turn your long shot kills from 4 to 6 shots into 4 to 5 shots, which is pretty good, and that means you'll be dropping enemies quicker from longer ranges compared to the base variant. Now, speaking of range, it comes with a +2 increase in range, which means that you'll be dropping enemies from longer range in only 4 shots. So the combination of +1 damage at longer range and 4 shots to kill from long range makes this a really good elite SN6 weapon. Now, the negatives of the third is that you get a huge -3 decrease in mobility, or in other words, a 30% slower aim down sights time, and it's going to be really slow, so you might want to use quick draw grip if you have it. So the first option, if you want to recreate this weapon, is the SN6 hammer. It's hammer time, yeah. It's one of the best SN6 variants to mimic the third, and it has a +1 damage increase, and I like it because it has no other negatives in its stats besides -4 rounds in its magazines, so I recommend putting on extended mags. And now what we want to do to mimic the third with the hammer is to add advanced rifling. It will increase the range from a 6 to an 8, so already statistically the hammer actually is now slightly better than the third because the hammer has no negatives in mobility. So in the hammer we have a total of 7 damage, 8 range, and 12 mobility. Now I know there's gonna be someone out there saying,
well, what if you put advanced rifling on the third? Now it has 10 range.
You know, like I said, this is a series based on which weapon variants will mimic the elites as closely as possible, so we're more focused on finding weapon variants that have nearly the same positives and negatives. So sit your down. So the second option that you guys have is going to be the SN6 Precision. Again, we're trying to mimic the stats of the third as closely as possible, and the Precision comes close. Now the Precision has a +1 in range and a -1 in mobility. Now the only thing it does not have is the damage increase at longer range, and other variants that I looked at had too many negatives in other categories, which is why I chose this one to be the best one to mimic the third. Anyways, if you put advanced rifling on this weapon, it increases the range from a 7 to a 9, which is pretty good, almost as good as if you put advanced rifling on the third, which would give it a 10. Now the mobility is going to be slow, but not as slow as the third would be, because the Precision you only get a 10% slower aim down sights compared to a 30% slower on the third. But what you could do to counteract this is also, I recommend a quick draw grip to help you aim in faster, and again, as an option you could also add in foregrip. So that's pretty much it. You know, my final thoughts on the SN6 in general is not really a weapon I would roll with. Although the accuracy is really good for this weapon, I just keep getting melted against the likes of the BAL and ASM1, which is why I strongly recommend only using this weapon, and only if you feel like using this weapon on small maps like Biolab, Riot, and Detroit. Anyways, be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed. Punch it, do it, come on, do it. Subscribe if you're new for more Call of Duty content, and I'll be back.
Yeah!